dropping in, Stalker.
Après-vous, ma chère Scarlet.
Yo, Joes, what do you say we get back to talking about what we all love? And today we're going to be talking about one of the most beloved G.I. Joe characters. It's our old pal, Lonzo Wilkinson from G.I. Joe. So we're working our way through the original lineup of G.I. Joe, starting with the 82 lineup, but this is the 83. I don't have any of the 82 figures. 1983 swivel arm version of Stalker, the G.I. Joe Ranger. And let's start off with his file card. Ranger, codename Stalker. File name Wilkinson Lonzo R. Primary military specialty infantry. Secondary military specialty medic and interpreter. Birthplace Detroit, Michigan. Grade E5. And the bio reads, Stalker was a warlord of a large urban street gang prior to enlistment. Fluent in Spanish, Arabic, French, and Swahili. Graduated top of class, basic combat training. Advanced infantry training, top of class. Special training, U.S. Army Language School. Intelligence School. Qualified expert, M14, M16, M1911A1 auto pistol. M31A grease gun. M32 pulverizer submachine gun. And the quote reads, functions well under high-stress situations. Intelligent, perceptive, moves like some sort of jungle cat. Silent, fast, strong. And that bio reminds me a lot of Scarlet's bio. This guy is just smashed over as a super soldier, just based solely on his biography and his training. Now, one of the reasons that I actually didn't end up getting Stalker back in the day was because he only included one accessory. And I decided to go with guys like Breaker, Short Fuse, guys who had a few more accessories with them. With Stalker, he didn't even have a removable helmet. Now I'm able to appreciate the coolness of a Green Beret. And it's kind of funny to think of Stalker as a Green Beret. He's never mentioned or called one. Lieutenant Falcon is specifically listed as a Green Beret. Stalker just happens to be wearing one. I don't know if he's an official Green Beret. He doesn't have the little pin that usually goes on the berets there, but it's something I've never really thought about. But Stalker only included one accessory, and it's his M32 pulverizer submachine gun, which has this really cool stock on it, which is actually pretty durable. I've had a few of these guns from the bonus packs, and I've never really broken one of these things. You would think that this would be one of the more fragile parts of a G.I. Joe, but it's pretty durable. I think it's this bend right here that allows it to absorb a lot more movement and range than some of the more fragile pieces like the wire that goes onto Breaker. Taking a look at Stalker's outfit here, he's got the same body type, the torso, reused parts as a lot of the G.I. Joes, but he doesn't seem like it because of the camo motif going on here. So he does have the body that a lot of the Joes have, but just because of this little bit of camouflage, it makes him seem very unique. Camouflage all throughout the limbs, the legs too. I never looked at Stalker as being another kind of, I don't want to say lazy or cheap, but a repaint as Breaker, Rock and Roll, Grunt, Short Fuse. Those guys are all pretty much repaints of each other. Hawk, but just the added paint applications, and I think that's why Stalker came with so few accessories. I think it was a little bit more time, effort, maybe money to add these extra camouflage paint applications onto Stalker. So as a kid I didn't get it. I thought, hey, why doesn't this guy come with anything other than one gun? And now I realize a lot more went into detailing this guy than most of the original G.I. Joe figures did in that first line. He's actually the only camouflage Joe, which is kind of funny when you think about a military toy line, and Stock is the only guy who actually got camo that year. And he's got the same articulation as all the other Joe figures. And it's worth noting that he is the only original G.I. Joe or Cobra figure for that matter that is mustachioed, not including a beard. So Rock and Roll, Breaker, Clutch, they all have beards, but in terms of just a good old-fashioned mustache, Stalker is the first one. And there would be many legendary mustachio Joes to come afterwards. Footloose, Sergeant Slaughter, and Mutt, Recondo, to name a few. But Stalker will always be the first mustache in G.I. Joe. There have been quite a few O-ring versions of Stalker. The only two that I have are the amazing 1989 Tundra version, which I took out to a little frozen pond some time ago. And the kayak actually does float in the water. And that is an awesome, awesome version of Stalker. Especially being a Snow Joe from up north. One of my favorite Joes, even though I didn't have him, I always loved Stalker. I loved his focus, he was just pure G.I. Joe. And the fact that he came out in an Arctic version, totally unexpected. Because this guy was a Ranger, I figured if they made a second version of him, it would be more along the lines of what we saw here. But I did love how they carried over the camo. They just gave him some Arctic boots, gloves, but they retained that camouflage. And then in 2004, there was another O-ring style, comic style this time, which was released in a 3-pack of comic-looking figures alongside Clutch and Hawk. So this one is very similar to the original Stalker, and the major difference is his coloration is just made up to look more like he did in the comic book. Totally different head. All of these comic pack G.I. Joes had smaller heads. I guess they figured the heads on the originals were too big. I don't know, maybe. I'm just so used to this. This looks right to me, and this will always look too small to me, even if it is more proportionately correct. And then he's got the red collar that all of the Joes had in the early Marvel comics. He does feel a little more, you can even see that. I don't know if he's bendy. The plastic definitely feels more bendy. I think you can even see me here bending his thumb, so you're not going to be breaking thumbs as easily on these 2000s versions of the Joes as you will on these. These might be more fragile, but they just feel better quality to me. And then there have been quite a few actually, modern Stalker figures. Starting in 2007 with the Anniversary line. Stalker was one of the initial Joes released in that Anniversary line. And the back of the packaging features some little thumbnails of different figures that you can get. Very close recreation of the original file card, and the card art is pretty close to, but original Joe fans from the 80s know it's not quite exact. It's very close, but not quite. And unfortunately, another thing that is close but not close enough is the weapon that's included with him. So this is not the same as the original pulverizer. You wouldn't think that would be such a big deal to just recast and remold that gun, but the weapons on those original 82 Joes, I think, are just as much a part of their personality as the characters themselves. So if you're going to go to the effort of trying to recreate the look of the figure that much, then you might as well just give him his original weapon too. Which is exactly what I did. So I just found an extra original looking Stalker gun and gave it to this guy. He holds it just fine, and I think it does a lot. It makes the figure look so much better. Now this is one of the most satisfying parts about these modern figures. Original figures, they couldn't really grip their weapons with two hands. This is just about the best you could do. Or putting a hand on top of the gun like this to try to steady it a little bit. This is where the modern figures really shine, though. You can have the figure hold the gun, and then there is enough posability in the new figures that you can actually get him to properly hold the stock, and you can point the head a little bit. You can squat the knees a little bit, and even without a stand, that looks fantastic. That's roughly the same size as the original figure, but so much more posability. So a lot of Joe fans are clamoring for a 6-inch scale, and that would be nice, but I don't think it's going to be a huge step up from this modern line. That is a really cool looking action pose that you couldn't achieve with the original figures. Really like that. A detail they've added is there's a little red pin or patch on his beret, so a little extra detail there. And then the big thing with the modern figures is they have removable harnesses, so this belt and harness will come off. Love this part. This was such a huge plus when these modern figures first came out, being able to take out pistols from their belts and actually remove them, because in the original ones all of the extra accessories were just molded on. You got a grenade molded on there, you got a knife molded on there, and you would pretend that he'd be able to use those extra accessories. But with the modern figures, you can just pull the knife out of the sheath, and now Stalker is ready to... I love this. It especially works with a figure like Stalker because he is a ranger. He's not just someone like Grunt Infantry or Heavy Machine Gunner. He kind of reminds me of Solid Snake from Metal Gear Solid. And if that original pose where he's holding the clip wasn't cool, check this out. Just holding the machine gun, setting it on his wrist, on his forearm, and he's got the knife drawn and ready. Or you could even go the other way to be even more Solid Snake like, and he's got that kind of CQC combat type of pose. I think that looks really, really beautiful. So it's cool to pose your figures in your display just like that, stoic, straight up, but that is an awesome action pose that you wouldn't think would be possible with a basically 4-inch figure. Lovely. And that mold would be reused in 2008 in a DVD Battles pack. Stalker is synonymous with the Jump Jet pack, and I've decided to give him a green one instead of the silver one that was included in that set. But this one looks a little bit more like the this comic version of Stalker, just with lighter colors, more cartoon accurate, because those DVD sets always did try to get more cartoon accurate looks. And then also in 2008, another Stalker was released with a different color scheme, and this one isn't really original figure color scheme or cartoon. It's just kind of a darker looking color scheme. Same mold as the 2007 version, but just a darker shade on the green, on the beret, on everything. And the major difference for this one is that it looks like he's actually wearing gloves instead of bare hands. So, I don't know, maybe more of a night version of Stalker with this edition. And this one was released in 2008's Ultimate Battle Pack. He also came with the gun that just doesn't quite look right. That came with that guy too. So I've given him another Battle Pack Stalker styled gun. And he also came with actually this Jump Jet pack, this green version. So I like to just mix and match, move things around, and this particular stalker, I actually have him with my Manta. This thing right here. I like to just try to mix and match things, put certain Joes with certain vehicles, and you never know what'll look quite right. And when I put this version of Stalker with the Manta, I just felt like he really went well with it. The gloves make sense. You'd probably need some gloves in order to hold on. And the modern figures, I think, are able to grip, hold on to the Manta, and pose on it a lot better than the vintage figures can. So I touched on that in one of the recent Patreon exclusives, an in-depth half-hour look at the Manta. And that's how I like to display my Manta, with this particular 2008 Stalker on it, sailing away. So that's the 1983 G.I. Joe Ranger Stalker. Big thanks to the Patreon tribe for voting on that one. And another vote is going to be coming up on there soon to decide who's the next original Joe or Cobra that we're going to be taking a look at. Big thanks to the Patreon tribe for supporting the channel and making this video and more videos to come possible. Thanks so much for watching. Hope you enjoyed this review. If you'd like to leave your thoughts about good old Lonzo Wilkinson, feel free to share them either here or on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, or on Patreon. And to join the tribe, hit subscribe. Yo, Joe!